Once Upon a Crime, Chapter 12. It's all kicking off now. The hallway of the giant's dwelling was very much cave and not castle. The walls were stone, solid and unadorned, save for flickering torches positioned at such height that their uneven light barely reached the floor. The giant bade Gretel follow him. They passed along a broad, high passageway that led upward into the mountain. With each mighty step her host took, the ground shuddered. Gretel was very glad the giant had chosen to wear slippers, which at least muffled the sound of those fearsome footfalls a little. She found herself obliged to break into an undignified trot to keep up with him. At length they came to another door. Though of necessity tall, it was understated and elegant, and in no way fortified. It opened onto a room so tastefully furnished, so exquisitely decorated, so expertly dressed, it quite took Gretel's breath away. She found herself gazing at her surroundings, mouth agape, quite forgetting where she was or why she was there. The giant saw her expression and was clearly pleased that she was impressed. "I see you appreciate beauty, Fraulein," he said, his own countenance revealing a certain bafflement at Gretel's grubby, unappealing attire. She had to take care not to give too much of herself away. "I was not always as you see me, Herr Giant," she told him. "I am only lately fallen on hard times. Hence my decision to obtain these cats in the hope you will give me a good price for them." "And who was it told you that I had need of the creatures?" She hesitated then, by way of explanation offered, "I come from the town of Gerstenstadt. There is not much that remains secret for long in such a small community." The giant nodded and then held out one enormous hand, gesturing impatiently for her to pass him the basket of cats. She watched him closely as he took them. With great care and gentleness he lifted them out, one at a time, and inspected them closely. He examined the colour and quality of their fur, but also the brightness of the eyes and the firmness of their limbs, a point Gretel found surprising. While he was engaged in scrutinizing the cats, she took the opportunity to further investigate the beautiful room. Gone were the rustic torches and bare stone walls. Here instead the skills of plasterer and decorator were plainly demonstrated. The ceilings bore intricate cornices and elaborate roses, from which were suspended dazzling crystal chandeliers, each holding a plethora of candles. The space was indeed filled with light, all the better to display the fine oil paintings that adorned the walls. The exquisite silks and damasks that draped corners and trompe-l'oeil windows, the elegant furniture, all built to accommodate the giant's proportions, yet gracefully constructed, with loving attention to detail and finish, the sumptuous fabrics upholstering the sofas and chaises, the gleaming silver candelabra, and the very finest examples of decorative china. The whole effect was one of opulence and yet restraint. It was evident that the giant's travels and adventures had equipped him not only with a great fortune, but with a knowledge and understanding of the finer things in life. It struck her as cruelly unfortunate that he could not find someone willing to share his extremely comfortable existence. The giant returned the cats to the basket, handling them with a tenderness that Gretel decided came naturally to him. Whatever feats of strength and victories in war his tremendous size and brawn had afforded him, his nature was that of a gentleman, in all senses of the word. "Tell me, Fraulein, what price do you demand for these cats?" "Ah, Herr Giant, I am in no position to bargain or make demands. All I ask is that you give me what you consider fair. I confess, word of your generosity in these matters has already reached me." The giant nodded, causing the tassel on the top of his fez to jiggle briskly. He opened his mouth to suggest what Gretel hoped would be a handsome sum of money, but his words were halted by the violent clanging of the front door knocker. From inside the cave castle the sound was 10 times what it was outside, as if they were positioned in the centre of a gargantuan drum. Gretel's hands flew to her ears. The giant frowned at the unwanted interruption and strode off down the passageway. Gretel found herself momentarily deafened, so that she was unable to listen to the giant's conversation with whomever it was who had come a-knocking. Nevertheless, she was not surprised when Inger Petersen-Muller was shown into the room. She carried her own basket of cats, and the giant brought in 2 more behind her. At the sight of Gretel, Inger first gasped and then scowled. Before she had the chance to speak, however, Gretel flung herself forward, throwing her arms around the startled woman. "Oh, Inga, she cried, in a display of emotion she considered really quite convincing. My dear friend, how long it is since we have seen each other. How fortuitous that happy circumstance should bring us together once more. In her arms, Inga stiffened and struggled to free herself, but did not succeed in doing so before Gretel had the opportunity to hiss into her ear, "Play along, or I'll tell Herr Giant all about the men and the dynamite." Releasing her long-lost friend, Gretel stood back and beamed. "You are well, my dear?" she asked. Inga was no stranger to the art of role-play and quickly took up the part. "As you find me, old friend, I have travelled far and am hopeful of doing business with Herr Giant to restore my fortunes." "Oh, how similar are our tales," said Gretel, aware that the giant, though somewhat distracted by the sudden abundance of cats, was listening to their exchange. "And have you brought so many beautiful animals?" "A great number." There was an edge to Inga's voice now, "but some were stolen." "Is that so? Surely no one and nowhere is safe these dark days," Gretel replied, allowing her face to show just the smallest smile. Inga was, in her opinion, a fiendish creature, and it was hard to pass up an opportunity to make her squirm. "Good ladies," the giant gathered up the baskets of cats in his capacious arms, "if you would be so kind as to follow me." So saying, he led them out of the fabulous salon. They ascended another twisting passageway. Gretel noticed this one had high windows hewn from the rock, allowing daylight to penetrate into the interior. They came to a set of double doors. Sounds of mewing could be heard. This was, it appeared, the place where the hapless cats were incarcerated. Gretel braced herself for what might be revealed as the doors were opened. For the second time in half an hour she found herself completely wrong-footed, and standing, jaw-dropped, regarding the palatial and luxurious room before them. This was no cage for the condemned, no stinking cell in which the felines must endure deprivation and starvation before being selected for their ultimate purpose. The room had been constructed, so it seemed, with every whim and wish a cat could conjure, were it able to express such things, for its comfort and ease. There were feather mattresses covered in the plushest velvet. There were full-grown trees for climbing and claw-sharpening. There were tables set with dishes of food that made Gretel's own mouth water. There were balls of wool and clockwork mice and tattered ribbons for exercise and diversion. The giant released the new additions to his collection from their cramped basket and watched as they explored the new and wonderful surroundings. Inga and Gretel exchanged looks of astonishment for a brief moment, united by their surprise. Their host pressed a finger to his lips to signify they should not disturb the kitties any longer, and ushered the women out of the sanctuary. He then took them still farther on and up until they came to a seemingly insignificant door at the top of a short flight of carpeted stairs. He took from his waistcoat pocket a golden key, turned the lock, and pushed open the door. Gretel caught herself gulping once again and shut her mouth firmly, though the splendour the giant revealed had them both awe-inspired. "My treasure, ladies," he said with a low, low sweep of his arm. "Please explore, browse, enjoy. I leave it to you to select items in payment for the treasures you have brought me. Take your time. I will return anon." Gretel felt a gentle nudge as he encouraged the women into the room. He then shut and relocked the door, and his thudding footsteps could be heard dwindling down the stairs and along the passage. Gretel was still at a loss for words. Inga, on the other hand, found the ability to express herself plainly. "Poke me sideways with a pitchfork," she cried, before launching herself face first into a giant pile of gold coins, thrashing about among the clinking doubloons and pieces, all the while emitting a joyous, if slightly hysterical, cackling laughter. Gretel was more restrained in her response to the Aladdin's cave of wonders in which she found herself, but was no less amazed. She wandered amid the chests and trunks overflowing with coins and the priceless artefacts and jewels. She found it hard to translate any of the treasures before her into a currency of cats. A handful of opals, perhaps, a pair of gold goblets, an ivory escritoire. She picked up a string of pearls. Each one was flawless and the size of a robin's egg. The creamy spheres felt pleasantly cool in her palm, and cooler still when she slipped the string around her neck and fastened the clasp. "Never in all my life," declared Inga, "have I seen such riches. She gathered handfuls of coins and stuffed them in her pockets and her undergarments. And to think of it belonging to that Golumpus, that beast of a creature, it is not right. By all accounts, he earned every piece for himself, said Gretel, and I think it inaccurate to call him beast. He is a person of cultured sensibilities. Ha! A person, as you put it, of violent strength and murderous abilities, more likely, and a twiddle-poop besides. 'Tis a waste such finery, such wealth, such potential on the likes of him. You would put it to better use, no doubt. Inge left off luxuriating in a heap of gold to curl her lip at Gretel. Do not think to set yourself above me like I was some sauce-spangled Friar Gretel of Gestonstein. Oh, yes, I remember you. I know you. And I knew your husband, shall we call him that? Ha! Him, a lobcock if ever there was one. You seemed so very fond of each other on your second honeymoon in Bardamsee. Inge struggled to her feet and fell to caressing a jewel-encrusted samovar. That jolterhead was no husband of mine. Besides, people have their uses as long as they are in possession of their nutmegs, she said. And Herr Peterson lost his nerve? Or should I say, more accurately, Herr Muller? Call him Cully Muckworm, call him what you like, it matters not to me. Evidently. Are you so different? Would you not use whatever hoddy-doddy or nazy you had in order to make your way in this unforgiving world? Gretel thought uncomfortably of the hunting knife, of Hans's plump paw, of needs musts and means to an end. Even so, she would not allow that such a base example of womanhood, a being so lacking in both morality, loyalty and, as crucially, refinement, to claim sisterhood. The measure of a person lies, I think, she said, not in what they will do, but in what they will not. You mistake me for someone who gives this for your measures, Inge replied, gesticulating with her fingers in a way even the troll might have found offensive. I don't know what your totty-headed game is, she went on, and nor do I care, so long as you keep your grog-blossom nose out of my business and let me do as I will. However could I stop you, said Gretel, feigning interest in a silver platter the size of a coffee table. I am here purely on business of my own, in regard to the cats of a client of mine, one Frau Habsburg. It is small business, and I do not believe our aims need oppose one another. But curiosity demands I ask of you, why did you deem it necessary to put an end to poor Brackston? What hold had he over you? That fat fool! He was in the giant's employ, sent to spy on us. We have been fetching cats for this monstrous dandy-prat for long months, but never direct, you understand. The troll was your go-between? He was, the stinking fartle-buried wretch. The giant thought by keeping us away we would not attempt to take his treasure. He underestimated your resolve, clearly. The troll, in his own stupid, blundering way, must have warned the giant about us. Muller was always letting his mouth run away with him. He most likely let something slip. Herr Troll's grog has a way of loosening tongues, said Gretel. We came to Bardamsee to meet him, but found Brackston sniffing after us, serving as a giant's whittler, so we thought to set him on to you instead. There you were, asking about the whereabouts of the troll, subtle as an avalanche. Gretel bridled at this. Investigations require questioning. There is no way around it. So we thought, why not? Set you toward the troll and Brackston after you. Only he got windy, heard we was on to him. You might like to examine your own methods, said Gretel. Thought we'd have to call the whole thing off and clear out of town, but then you gave us the perfect solution to our problems. The hunting knife. The knife Brackston near your room, you and that cully brother of yours, larger than life for all to see in the wrong place at the wrongest of times. The fierce dislike Gretel had hitherto harboured for Inge blossomed into full-blown hatred. She would not be made to feel responsible for Brackston's death. She would not. While you were plunging that knife into the poor man's chest, I was wheeling Hans around the square. So you were. Pity you don't have any witnesses, is it not? Pity for you, that is. You say Dieter Muller lost his nerve. Is that why you poisoned him? I could see he hadn't the stomach to take on the giant, not even for this. She waved her hand at the splendour surrounding them. He was scared to risk his miserable hide, and scared that even if he didn't assist me, the giant would reckon he must have had something to do with it and come after him anyway. You were in Gestonstein when he decided to jump ship, as it were. Further unfinished business, said Inga. Ah, yes, Herr Hund's gambling debts. I have no sympathy for elbow shakers. They bring their misfortune upon their sorry selves. Another sap. Ha, men! She summoned phlegm from her throat and spat onto the floor at Gretel's feet. Give me a woman any day of the week. There was an uncomfortable stutter in the flow of their conversation. Gretel felt panic rising and did not care for the way in which Inga was now letting her gaze sweep Gretel's body from furry-hatted head to clumsy-booted toe. Surely the toxic woman was not about to suggest some manner of alliance. And yet, said Gretel, you have brought many men with you, and dynamite. Such men are hired for their muscle, not their wit. At the top of the hour, if I have not reappeared, they will blow up the great doors to this nonsense of a place and gain entry. The giant will resist. He is quite terrifying in his strength and size. My men are armed and hungry for loot. Even so, I should not want to be found here to face her giant's fury. She pulled a pin from her hair and turned quickly to the door. With a minimum of fuss and fiddling, she had the lock undone and the door open. Will you not flee while you have the chance? She asked Inga. What? And leave all this? She shook her head defiantly. I shall remain and await my men. Gretel made to leave. Inga was astounded. Will you go empty-handed? All this treasure before you, and you quit the room without taking what you can? Gretel resisted touching the pearls at her throat. Clearly Inga had not noticed the necklace. Gretel refused to think of taking them as theft. There was a wrong to right, a debt or several to be paid. A single string of pearls was fair enough, she reasoned. I did not come here to rob the giant, Gretel told her. I may have a game to play, but it will be a fair one. Inga gave a derisive snort. Such lofty ground you inhabit, Fraulein. The air must be very thin up there. At least I have no trouble sleeping. I sleep well enough. Ah, but what phantoms people your dreams. There was a fizzing silence. The two women regarded each other sternly. Inga stood tall, hands on hips, defiant, and yet she gave no answer to the question. Though it may have been a trick of the flickering candlelight, Gretel fancied she glimpsed fear in her eyes. Or was it regret? Gretel said no more but left the room of wonders, closing the door softly behind her.